Association of Certified Chartered Accountants for having come all the way from UK. The working of the boards, not only in UK, but also in Europeans. India is bound to benefit from the management boom now, quite literally and figuratively, is a fine brand high commissioner or ambassador by another of our great countrymen. The late experimenting with these changes, that is, board committees, independent directors, stakeholders, and the Serious Fraud Investigation Office. Last but not representatives mandate auditing in all the boards. I'm sure Ms. Helen, as one of the worthy intellectual successors to Sir Adrian Calvary, with Indian boards, as a result of the changes in the Companies Act, directors' duties, and last but not least, the corporate social responsibility. Makes us famous. Friends, management, I would like to share with you some of the ideas of arguably the greatest management thinker of the 20th century. It is not knowledge but performance. Boards of tomorrow, I'm sure, will have to perform. Again, I'll share another words of wisdom. They are effective boards. And thirdly, boards represent community relations. We have the boards will promote what is known as the Muthoot family, a pioneering historic family of Kerala, has a unique philosophy that venture into socially harmful causes like liquor business, etc. However, Mr. Muthoot has made his appearance, so the moral of the story is that if you want to apply for finances, and in my opinion, CSR is nothing but an extension of the welfare state, but now extends to its premier institution. The boardroom practices and CSR may fulfill in future the vision of arguably, once again, none but Peter Drucker. Even sans capitalists and tycoons depends for leadership on the managers of its major institutions, that is like boards. I'm sure deliberations will center on this aspect. They must groom the future leaders of the society. Thank you. I would now, pending the arrival of the Honourable Minister, request Lieutenant General J. Directors to please deliver his welcome address. Lieutenant General Harware.
And Mr. Muthoot, the 5th and 6th of February in Mumbai at the Taj Windsor on corporate social responsibility. So various places all over the various metro towns, we try and see how we can cover various subjects which are of interest to our membership, that is the corporate directors. Next is the requirement for their training. Yes, we do, because it's very important to see how the directors, especially now, as Ashok mentioned, that more than nearly 50% will be independent directors, and a large number of them women. Today already 10% have become women directors in the country. So this is where the training is being given a great importance, and a number of training programs on different subjects concerning boardroom functioning are being organized by IOD throughout the year. In fact, I would say around 4 to 5 programs every month, someplace or the other in the country. And we are, of course, the Masterclass is one of the flagship program, which is a 3 days program, mainly now being followed by lots of independent directors, lots of women organizations who are conducting a purely women's program on corporate directorship, a 3-day program. Next is already mentioned, and you've seen in the film also, that was regarding the Golden Peacock Awards. So, because I very strongly believe that there is no other way to bring out the best in a person then bringing about competition, whether it is individual competition or organizational competition or even national competition. That is the only way to bring out the best in the organization or the person. So we mainly focus on organizational awards and on 13 different verticals, corporate verticals, that we have awards introduced over the years, and today 13 of them, with 3 of them in additional, which are global awards, wherein people from all over the globe are competing, which are on corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, and sustainability. These 3 are global awards, which mostly we are giving CSR Global Award will be given in Mumbai next month, but sustainability and corporate governance awards will be given in London. So this is how every year these 13 plus 3 global awards are being progressed by this organization. Of course, a lot had been mentioned about IOD publications. We are only trying to see how we can meet the requirement of the corporate directors as such, and so a number of handbooks helping them to meet their requirements, trying to see how we can condense various information very, very briefly so that it's available to the directors on the shelf next to their table so that they are able to refer to them and take full advantage of it. So this is another this. Now, this is what IOD is really trying to do, and of course we do have a number of evening workshops like we are having today all over the country, whether it is in Ahmedabad or Bengaluru or Bombay and elsewhere, and we will try to see how to widen it. We are setting up another regional office in Kolkata soon, and it's already in the way, and we should be having it, and so we greater. That is just to see how the eastern part of the country can also be taken in this forward. As far as today's workshop is concerned, of course, it's a very vital area of boards for the future. We mentioned about Companies Act and how corporate governance, this act has tried to bring it to the national level. Then also we talked about boards, how they are, what are we needing, what are the insights required into the board, that is working of the boards, improving performance by good governance, and changes in legal and regulatory framework for the directors. So these are the main, that is mainly for the compliance angle. So these are the main area in which we are trying to look for board for the future. And in the wake of various corporate scandals in the last 2 decades, whether our own Enron and Satyam and so many others we are all aware of, we're not going to talk about it, they have really placed the board in the fishbowl of public scrutiny. There is no doubt about it. They are in the watch, people are trying to see how the boards are functioning, are they effective, what are the independent directors doing, they are being questioned. And people are today, I would say that the people are asking, should I become independent director? Should I take off? Is it worth it? Or is there more problem than I'm going to buy? So one has to be careful as to what companies one is trying to get in and how. So one has to really go about it in this manner. The diversity and inclusiveness, that's another area of the board. A lot has been talked about, and while diversity is counting numbers, the inclusiveness is making the numbers count. So that is how we're trying to see how both these diversity as well as inclusiveness in the board membership can be ensured. Annual evaluation of boards, whether it is the board's performance, whether it is the chairman's performance, whether it is the independent director's performance, are another area of great interest and which are being seen. Of course, integrity and ethics to realign the moral compass of the board has always been in the forefront. Now, what are the key problem areas of the board that we are looking for? The lack of diversity because of the rich debate that we are looking for, poor selection and assessment of directors, rotation of the board and committee members. These are all questions which are being asked. Building effective teams for fostering creativity, temptation to micromanage by the board, and the difference between the chairman and the CEO. How the two tables or two seats have to be separated to be able to perform, one to take on the governance and the policy making, and the second to execute or manage it. This is how we are trying to see how these things can be, so that temptation to micromanage is not there. Also, independent directors, they need lots of board initiation because they have no institutional memory to rely upon, and so that becomes another area for concern. The board and management roles I talked about, identifying priorities and trends and engaging with the stakeholders, effectively monitoring the company's performance, and they do not know each other well enough within the board so that to speak out confidentially. There is inhibition. That
a lack of awareness of activity and behaviour down the corporate hierarchy is also at the root of some of the problems. So we're having a technical hitch here, it's all the way, right. It's there, okay. So the issue was highlighted in the latest series of ACCA reports on culture and channeling corporate behaviour, which we produced in partnership with the Economic and Social Research Council based in the UK. The latest report is an analysis of ACCA member survey which harnessed the views of 2,000 members who are finance professionals from around the world, including India. This took a range of views from people working at every level, in organisations in every sector, and the overwhelming view was that the tone at the top has by far the strongest influence on corporate behaviour. Incentives, not only related to pay, came second, followed by rules and procedures, and lastly, personal agendas. In terms of awareness, about 40% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that in their organisation, senior management was sufficiently aware of what was going on lower down the organisation. Almost half, 48%, agreed or strongly agreed that senior management was accurately reporting information back to the board. Therefore, a large proportion do not believe this to be the case. And given that perception is often all that people have, it's an issue which business leaders, including the board, must address. The survey also showed that almost half the respondents described their organisation as hierarchical and said that communication was top-down. Even more concerning, only 19% reported that there were both good bottom-up and cross-departmental communications. So how do the board and the C-suite get their messages across effectively? The need for excellent communication becomes more critical when you consider that the vast majority of respondents, 82%, also argued that self-interest could cause people to override corporate procedures and rules. But our respondents also provided a potential solution. A large majority of respondents, 74%, said that the creation of an environment where people could comfortably discuss any concerns or dilemmas was the most effective way of promoting ethical behaviour. Our survey also asked people what incentivised them. The key findings show that the most important factor at work is getting recognition for the work that individuals do, with more than 80% of respondents supporting that view. This came up as the top factor regardless of age, industry or geographical location. Having challenging work was the second to recognition that motivated people. Half the respondents agreed, or strongly agreed, that performance-related pay schemes help foster best performance, although nearly two-thirds, 65%, suggested that such schemes could lead people to exaggerate or otherwise falsify their performance measures. But again, the survey highlights some potentially concerning issues for board members. Asked how well specific groups understood the way incentives work in practice in their organisation, 39% of finance professionals said that the board understood it not so well, poorly, or very poorly. And that might be unduly harsh, but it is clear that board members have an issue to tackle. Largely that they are out of touch, in part because they might not be getting a true representation of what is actually happening in an organisation. That said, the board of course still has a huge opportunity to influence the organisation they lead. Around the world, our members thought that the attitude of the directors and senior management in setting and actually living the organisation's values and ethical culture was vitally important in driving behaviours of people who work there. That beat rules and incentives every time. When people were asked if they were aware of the culture of their organisation, a large majority agreed they do actually know it. Not only that, again, a large majority of people Sorry, can we go back? Not only that, again, a large majority of people positively supported the organisation's values. However, at the same time, people were less sure if those values work well in practice. Also, more than half of respondents said that there are multiple layers of culture which exist in their organisations. These should duly concern business leaders. Another area of concern is that the impact of cognitive biases on decision-making, with a suggestion that there is a real need for training to enable board members to be more objective in their decision-making. A number of roundtables we conducted also thought that over time their boards have become too distant from the company's daily operations, which often results in poor decision-making and have a negative impact on behaviours. The survey, as I'm sure you're not surprised to hear, also reveals there is no one-size-fits-all strategy when it comes to building corporate culture and behaviour. Even though the role of leadership in setting the tone is highlighted in most responses, the survey uncovers significant differences in attitudes and perceptions regarding effective channels of corporate behaviour. But while there may be common ground in how companies can build an effective culture and behaviour, our research shows that they do face similar challenges, which means that the foundations of strong culture must be in place. In the research we undertook, which looked at the key drivers of change, we identified the imperatives for which businesses must plan. Businesses must now factor in turbulence as a very real possibility and develop strategies for a range of different market and economic scenarios. Boards must prepare for a wide range of possibilities, be tolerant of uncertainty, have greater curiosity, and be able to see round corners. These are critical development priorities for managers and leaders alike. Technology must be at the heart of strategy and operations of businesses of almost all sizes, which means that boards must be committed to pursuing technology leadership. However, further research that we've undertaken with KPMG suggests that business leaders need to take a leap of faith to fully embrace the opportunities in the knowledge-based economy. This report of more than 1,000 finance professionals in more than 50 countries found that many decisions are still based on the instinct of whoever sits at the top of the organisation rather than information-based insight. There are clearly many benefits of using concrete data sources, particularly external ones, but gaining buy-in from business leaders is essential to unlocking the true value of those sources. If management do not trust the data on which performance insight is based, or would rather use their own instinct, it becomes even harder for the rest of the business to do so. Clearly, we all within business need to be basing decisions on sound evidence and data, which, when used properly, supports the pursuit of strategic goals and enables organisations to effectively respond to emerging threats and opportunities. So it is imperative that everyone in this room at least considers how they react to and use data, because you set the tone for those that you lead. It is also vital for businesses to prepare for true globalisation. The development of a truly global operating model is becoming a priority. A clear emphasis is required, of course, on leveraging technology effectively. Equally important is developing the capability of management to work with, adapt to, and get the best out of a multi-location, multicultural, and age-diverse workforce. Boards must also help their organisations to develop a curious, experimental and adaptable mindset. A critical success factor in an increasingly complex and fast-changing environment is building that curious culture. This implies nurturing an environment that is open to external ideas, in which participants are encouraged to forge a network of strong working relationships across the entire business ecosystem. And at the centre of this network should be the boards, which is why it's critical for all of us that we ensure that board members and those who aspire to to a seat on the board are fully prepared for the challenges that they will face. Now, I've touched on just a few issues here, but I'm sure that our highly distinguished panel will have their own very insightful views on the subject to share later. Thank you very much.
Request Mr. George Muthoot, the Chairman Muthoot Group, to deliver his special address and extend to Mahesh Sharma, Honourable Union Minister of State for Culture, Tourism and Civil Aviation. I request him to kindly accept a token memento. Welcome on behalf of IOD. Friends, you recall I kept his introduction in abeyance. I'll be true to my words. Mahesh Sharma, for sparing so much of his time to be with us today. A fact not very well known when he's dubbed as just a politician. He's the past president of IOD. He's also running a trust in the name of Kailash Charitable Trust to provide the much needed poor and needy persons free of charge. He has established multi-speciality hospitals in UP. He has received honorary doctorate from the Amity University, 200 national and for social work, health awareness programs, awards fatigue, so that we are afraid to offer him a Golden Peacock Award for exceptional social service. Friends, believe it or not, he received these. I now request Mr. George Muthoot, Chairman Muthoot Group.
I think they are too busy with new friends. And I could not come to that very great workshop on risk management. We in Muthoot have 18 vertical divisions, and it may be amazing to the minister also to say, and most of you, our family did 800 years of business, and today's Muthoot Group is the last leg of that family business. It's a unique distinction, and thanked by God, and all the 800 years were unblemished track record. And it's 128 or 129 years of the Muthoot Group, which I am the third generation chairman. We are humbled to the blessings given by God Almighty and the support given by, you may be again amused to hear, in our financial services alone, we had 42 crores customers. There is a book on this which shows only 100 such cases. I cannot carry all the 42 crores, it has to come in truckload. Another amazing thing, we talk about financial inclusion, both by the UPA government and the present government. People earlier didn't even know what is financial inclusion, but it was made clear to the intelligentsia of the country that it is bringing the poor people in the network of banking. Friends, with humility, let me say, 42 crores of people were brought into the networking of banking, and the definition says only bringing, but we brought them and we did financial inclusion plus, that was giving them money. And then another plus is made them stand on their feet and make money and return to us. So our main business of financial division, financial enterprises division, financial services division was also, apart from our core business, was the CSR of the country. We did definitely do a great lot of upliftment of the economy of the country. Whenever the economy was in problem, we used to do this continuously, and we are still doing it. Since we are all here to discuss about the concerns all corporates are having, I am reminded of a small story. A girl known as a high school girl with the name of Kana in Japan used to travel to her school from a remote station in Hokkaido. Interestingly, Kana was the only girl traveling in the train. There was not a second person traveling in the train. The government of Japan did not stop the service, and they continued till that girl passed out of her graduation 3 years later. This shows not only corporate governance, and the ultimate aim of corporate governance is to look after the people concerned in a country or in an organization. And the station continued the service till 26 March, till her examinations were over. The fine example of good governance penetrating right to the grassroots is the most important thing. We talk about governance, we talk about board of directors, but when you come to the grassroots, we may be talking about simple terms instead of big terminology. Let me say again, at Muthoot Group, we live and breathe the fundamental principles of ethics, values, reliability, dependability, trustworthiness, and goodwill. Friends, with these fundamental principles, I am not here to propagate about our group, but this is our corporate brochure showing our 18 divisions. The main heading is trust, which made trust of 120 crores of people. You go to any part of the country, any village, Muthoot Group has an organization and office there, serving the community in India. Somebody joked at me, Mr. George, your branches and offices are there where crow doesn't fly. So it was a great compliment given to us, but we are still serving and we are still opening more and more places. Sir, I hope you are from Punjab or UP. Which means? UP. In UP itself, we have 2 or 3 regions and at least more than 250 offices. We are afraid to go to many parts of UP, you know why, and we are very, very careful and very, very conservative where we have to go, because one of our line of business, even though it was a full-fledged bank, in 1939, it, because of some reasons, became a semi-bank and then private bank and then Muthoot Finance, as per RBI's rules changed. We have been doing more than a bank, and it's a size of 3 to 4 size of a scheduled bank. And people in South still calls us Muthoot Bank, which was our original name, not Muthoot Finance. Somebody asks, where did you go? They say, I went to Muthoot Bank. What I said is, conservatism is, no bank in the world keep 30 crores, 40 crores asset in a branch. Sir, please don't tell your neighbors. We are very much afraid of the asset which is kept, which is the gold. It is again amazing thing for me and for anybody to hear, for anybody in India, what is the most costly thing is the land. But you cannot carry land in your pocket and go. But the second thing is gold. A company which originated from Travancore, you know Kerala's map, if you see where somebody is saying you are from which place? Kerala. Actually Kerala is a shape of a Kerala. From Kerala, from a small place, God allowed us to spread all over India. There are certain qualities to that, and this valuable thing is given to our custody in our 4,500 offices. So why I said this? There are dacoits, there are people who come and attack, but we have enough security. Our biggest security is God. Of course, we have 2 guards, for your information. Usually no bank keep 2 guards. We have 1 gun inside and 1 guard outside. Why I am saying all these things? It is this kind of values and ethics that our corporate governance are built on. And this has been continued for 800 years in our family business and 129 years in our business continued in excellence. While we believe in strongly planning ahead for the future, we also derive inspiration from the time-tested practices evolved over centuries. It is these practices that have helped us to build a formidable business empire today comprising 18 divisions, where these values are applicable in every division. It is not that it is only in one division. I don't know whether you know, we have 2 divisions which are non-business. Doctor, you may kindly forgive me. One is education and the other is healthcare. As of today, these 2 are non-business. It was a decision taken by the family, and we have one of the schools in Delhi, which is one of the best schools in Delhi, by the name of St. George's School. 52 years, till today, we have not taken 1 rupee donation, and the value based is, I think, it will be amazing to see, we keep the values of Arsha Bharata, Nidhi Sara, which is 6,500 years old, Mata, Pita, Guru, Ishwar. If anybody doesn't agree or do not understand this, that's the door and that's the gate. Very difficult to run and no donation and no recommendations. Very difficult to run a school like that. Anyway, we were lucky that in 1987, we were allotted a land. Before that, it was running on rented places, and Vice President of the country came and laid the foundation stone, and 1990, the President of India came and inaugurated that school. It's not because the Vice President or President, it is in the board. We feel much above all these things is to do these things well.
The administration, the board of directors, and of course, the visionaries behind this organization of Institute of Directors, General Walia, vision of LNG, and the real life of, into the history of a person who has started his life from a laborer to a thekadar. And in that safar, maybe the family legacies came with the new vision of our great Prime Minister to take this country to Make in India or to the startups. We have to discuss this issue of the building the boards for the future. Where our population is a curse, we are the youngest country on this earth, the democratic one, and walking this way and learning from the experience of the European world, where the aging population is becoming a burden on the country as well as on the society. It's a high time when we have discussions like this, the deliberations like this, where the extracts of such deliberations will go a long way in shaping the economy of this country. The people of the world are looking towards us, that India will lead us. It will show us the path of the management, path of the economy. Our scientists have proved worldwide, including NASA. Our medical professionals, if tomorrow you withdraw the medical professionals, Indian medical professionals from National Health Scheme of UK or CHS of USA or Australia, they are going to collapse within 48 hours. That is the truth. We have the IT intellectuals, the genius, and now the world is looking towards that. Yes, we have the leaders, not in the political form, but in the economic form, in the form of so-called board of directors or the chairmen. Leaders, we say leadership is not a position. It's a behavior. It's a perception. I created a statement in I'm a small, very, very small entrepreneur and very small talking in front of you people as a stalwarts of this and expertise in this field. I'm a very small person. I was invited to Osaka, Japan to deliver a talk to the worldwide forum of discussing the Chinese versus the Japanese model of business. I asked that why I have been invited. Okay, here there is a reason. General Walia, of his greatness, and I'm not an expert, but as a courtesy, as being a minister and a part of that so-called 65 members governance system of this, in different fields, I have got 3 ministries with me. And I can see that it's my experience during this last about 15 months or so of my ministerial, that we are short of leaders. I was discussing with Keshav Chandra as we were on the way, that initiative takers are very few in number, starting from very small things. Mr. A.K. Singh sitting from over here. If I go to small places for small things, the people will say, I was thinking, I was planning to do it. I did not do it because I needed that ignite off. And that is the truth, that where the leader's role comes in the way. We as a leaders have to give direction. We don't have to work, we have to get the work done. And people look towards us as a leaders. Some 30 years back, when I started with my small enterprising with a very small sum of 600 rupees, when they asked in Japan that please write it into US dollars, that got converted into $12. So they said, when an Indian can work with $12 also. Yesterday we were listening a story of a media mogul, Mr. Subhash Chandra. He was showing that how he started a business with 17 rupees to 17,000 crore of rupees. It was not Subhash Chandra. It could be his vision, but it could be his associate as a directors and a board of directors, like people sitting over here. I defined a definition for my business model that anybody who wants to do all work by himself or wants to get a credit of being done for it, he cannot be a successful person. And that's what was the extract and gist of my small vision, whatever I came across. I started serving with the people as an employee who are to the tune of about some 50,000 crores or even more or more. There was a group of industrialists, Motherson Sumi System, Flex Group, Rajnigandha in Noida, nearby areas. And from there, I could see that the very few people have got the real leadership vision. We have a bunch of followers. Initiative takers, people are very less in number. They are waiting for a strike from their leader. They are waiting for the vision of their leader. There are hundreds and thousands of the books written on management, the company laws, company directives. But it's not the books only that can make it could be such forums where we can have discussions. We can listen to the stories of the successful people like Mr. George over here, Helen G, and so many of other right now. Some discussions will be going on now also. Friends, and I can see there are very senior people than me over here. I regard them. It's a high time that we become giver. It's our tradition that we respect to the giver. Be it the Almighty God, be it our parents who have given birth to us, or be it our teacher. We accept them in toto because they are the ultimate givers. Maybe we walk out of this hotel and give them 10 rupees, 100 rupees to a beggar. We don't respect him. We sympathize with him. And all of us, we want to be givers. There is a book written in the form of Kal Chakra. They say that in 15 to 20% of your lifetime, you are ultimate giver. Balance time, you are yourself beggars. Sometime you will be asking to become a minister, a doctor, an engineer, or industrialist or something. So we are always begging before someone. Maybe our masters, maybe that ultimate master of ours, God. And we all want to be in that group of so-called ultimate givers. And that book says that if you lose that 15 to 20% time of being that ultimate giver, you have lost the way of your life. Being in board of directors, being with this group, now that time has changed when people used to search for sons and grandsons and maternal uncles and sister and in-laws to run the industries, the management groups. Now they look for real professionals. They look for real genius people. One person can change. I'm happy that people come, that I'll be here with you for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years or so. I'm taking this as a challenge on turnkey basis. And a single visionary, when he takes up such challenge, these people of that category are sitting over here. I'm sure there are many category of leaders over here. But still, being a learning process from the experiences. And when we share experiences in such forums, we shape up our vision also. There was a person, there was a director working with me. He was drawing a salary of about some 12 lakh rupees with me. He was a doctor. I called him one day that you are a good doctor, but you are a bad human being. Try to be a good human being. He walked out of my chamber, came after 3 days, that I feel that I may be a good professional, I may be a good doctor, engineer, but I am not a good human being. He accepted and he said, I want to be a good human being. He was much older than even in my age also. So many times we don't, he was of the age group of about 55 or 57 or so. And in the last 25 years of time, he accepted that somebody did not make me realize that along with being a good doctor or administrator, I'm not a good human being. So success, everybody wants to succeed. And there is a very thin line between success and a failure. And the person who crosses that thin line of between success and a failure, they write the pathway and they become the part of history also. We all want to be a part of history and we all want to be the path leaders also. It's a high time that industry needs you, society needs you, country needs you, and at the end of that, humanity needs you to be a giver to the society, to be a giver to this great country of yours. Let's take a pledge that in best of my capacities and capabilities, I love to do justice to the expectation of the people and the country. My good wishes. Thank you very much.
One would assume the future of the company. But if the future of the company clashes with the future of the society or the environment, then what are the parameters for board to take a decision? Who is responsible for building the boards? The largest shareholder or someone else? And who is the board responsible to? Who evaluates them and assesses their performance? There are many types of companies in India. Closely controlled, family managed groups, barring a few exceptions, one of them is here. They are generally subpar in how the public perceives them. Multinationals, they are generally controlled from the parent. Government-owned companies, their decisions still tend to be imposed on the board by forces outside the board, howsoever hard it may be to accept. Widely held, truly public professional companies are still a minority. Now, why is it so? What are the four major challenges that I perceive? One, typically boards spend much more time looking at the rear view mirror than on the road ahead. The key task of a company board is to be a competitive advantage for the company, for sustained growth. It's easy to understand why it's not happening, because the past screams louder than the future. The future is mute, but it's not deaf. If we open a coil between the past and the present, we find usually that we lose the future. The second reason is that the board somehow tends to have a strong bias towards fiduciary tasks. Directors still spend a lot more time on quarterly reports, audit reviews, budgets and compliance, an average of 7%. Instead of on matters crucial to future prosperity and direction. Third, regrettably, members look at their role as supporting the CEO at all times. Why do they do that? Because CEOs and their top teams often see board suggestion as interference. And finally, independent directors tend to serve on too many boards. Enough studies are available that if they serve on more than 3 boards, then they cannot do justice to all the boards. In fact, gone are the times of long lunches and substantial matters. Typically, they believe that one has to spend at least 5 days a month on the board if they have to discharge their responsibilities properly. These are the challenges I perceive.
Thank you. I think each of those points probably merits a whole seminar of its own, but thank you for those points, challenges that are facing boards. Dr. Chatterjee?
Yeah, I think it's only fair that we try and just put one or two, flag one or two items. My principal concern in many of the boards that I sit is the lack of what I call a strategic vision. We deliberate too much on the minutiae, on the 1,000 papers that we receive, and the agenda of the board is a daunting, long, detailed process. End of the day, everyone is so tired that the long-term strategy of the company is pretty much lost in the wilderness. The board should earmark at least half of the time devoted to the board on the strategic vision that they are there to impart to the company. And the worry or the concern is always that the board is getting into so much of the detail which actually should be left to people who manage the company on a day-to-day basis. That's point one. Point two is this. And what is your responsibility to society at large? Beyond the company, you are actually working in a society, in an environment, in a community. What are your obligations to them? Beyond the stakeholder, how do you serve, beyond the shareholder, how do you serve the larger community of stakeholders? How do they impact you? How do you impact them? Much of this tends to be lost, and I think these two need to be the centrality of what board should really be doing.
Thank you. Very insightful and to the point. And again, lots of food for thought for all of us. Mr. Mahmood, do you want to? Just say one.
They won't. I think I have told basically few things, but if you ask me a pertinent question, I do agree with Sri Bhaskar Chatterjee. Many boards go into nitty-gritties, forgetting about their real duties and responsibilities. Usually they go into the operation part of it, which is to be left to the management, which is under the CEO. CEO part may be in the management, the managing director of the company may be there. But when you look into the real aspects, the risk management of a company as well as statutory obligation of a company are to be seen thoroughly. As already said by somebody, this should not be a farce or a just for the namesake a board meeting. The board members should come with homework, well prepared and with questions. They should ask real questions, not to deter or not to hinder in the growth. Rather, they should give suggestions positively for the growth of the company, and also the company should grow with values which I said. The values are not for the company's growth alone. Any company should have an obligation apart from the stakeholders to the society and the country at large and the world at large. Now, profit making is not the only vision of a company. All the strategies should be made in such a way that it is sustainable, and the board should always be looking internally what is lacking and what the challenges for the company from outside.
Thank you. Mr.
The boards have come a long way from when they were started and the roles from which they were envisaged to, the role which they were envisaged to perform. First of all, when the boards were created, maybe long back, maybe a couple of 100 years ago, they were basically administrative. Then the evolution of boards took place. The board started managing. Today, the prime responsibility of any board is to govern. After all the things which have happened, which have taken place in various companies, and the major risk, the major risk that the boards face is the frauds, the behavior of the people, and the unnecessary things which happen, which are the unholy behavior of certain individuals. So these are the main things that one has to take care. Like what Mr. Dadu has mentioned already. Incidentally, Mr. Dadu is also on our board, and I would say that the risk-taking ability has to be studied. And I would say that the independent directors play a big role in this, because we as the functional directors, the chairman, we are guided by what the objectives given to us are, what the targets given to us are. But the independent directors play a great role. They try to soften the stance taken by us. They lead us to the right path. They tell us, do not stray too much, don't take too much of risk. So this is the main thing that the role of the independent directors should be, and that is what they should be asked to do.
Thank you.
I can say with experience, I have worked on the board of many PSUs. As secretary, I have seen the functioning of many PSUs in Steel and Fertilizer Ministry. And as chairman of PSB, I was responsible for selecting the functional directors of 286 PSUs of India. So I have seen it on many facets, and I can say that I would like to make 3 or 4 points which are basically with reference to PSUs and maybe applicable to other stakeholders also. What Bhaskar Chatterjee has said, that we spend very little time on future and strategy. Actually, I will substantiate his point that as PSB chairman, we have analyzed the board papers of about 200 PSUs over the last 3 years. And we found that about 4 to 5% of the agenda taken all together consists of future and strategy. 96% is dealt with some items which somebody else could have decided, or some committee of administration or executive directors, board or committee, some delegated authority could have decided that issue. Total 5% agenda consists of future and strategy, and even in that 5%, nothing is beyond 5 years. So everything is future of next 5 years, maximum 10 years, and strategy. That is number one. Number two, with reference to PSUs, I think one of the biggest reforms which are needed at the board management is that the owners, which is the government, has to keep PSUs at the arm's length. Actually, we have tried that how hard the government tries to keep them in control. As a secretary of the ministry, we have tried to keep them at arm's length and allow them to function. And we have deliberately, with tremendous effort, have ensured that autonomy of the board, at least in PSU setup, should be maintained if they have to discharge functions. And it needs a lot of courage on the part of owners to give those powers to the PSUs. So the second is how to ensure autonomy in PSUs in the government setup and boards otherwise, in general setup where the owners may be the majority shareholders, do they allow their boards, do they empower their boards? I think we are democracy, but I have found even in boards functioning or in government functioning, we are still feudalistic in our thought process. We don't accept no, we don't accept dissent. So I think there is a lot of need to be attitudinal changes and to empower boards, and it's two-way. Owners should empower boards and boards should empower owners unless that happens. So I think that is number two I would like to say. And the last thing which I would like to say is that in PSUs in general and even in private sector, in one of the best private sectors, I was aghast by the lack of legal knowledge about the rules, regulation, framework under which they operate, which are directly related to them and also indirectly related to them, and which has got impact on their performance. They just don't know what has hit them, because the total knowledge of rules, regulations and law and their interrelationships are not very clear in majority of enterprises functioning in India. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've heard there very many challenges, and I think some of the areas of focus for future-looking boards, strategy, making sure that you have that competence at the base of everything, making sure that you're not interfering in the operations of the business or the enterprise. I guess the question to you now is, what do we do about that? And specifically, how you would feel individuals would be better prepared for taking on those kinds of responsibilities in the board? What is it that we have to do to shape the effective board members who will have that view of the board of the future?
One suggestion I'd like to make is this. And this is important, which I take from the UK experience. Today, if you want to select an independent director, what is his or her qualification? Zero. Except for the background or the experience. But in terms of certification, zero. In the IOD of the UK and in many other countries of the world, any aspiring independent director must qualify himself or herself through a series of examinations. The IOD UK, with whom the IICA is currently envisaging a tie-up, has a 3-tier specialization system where at the 3rd tier you become what is called a chartered director, where you sit on the boards of the top companies of the UK. We are trying to bring this certification to India, allowing therefore and trying to hope that when companies then select an independent director, they would be able to have a person qualified to be one. That will bring a great deal of professionalism to the board and will actually change the way boards think or prioritize what they should do. That, I think, is the principal missing link in much of what we do here.
Dan, I'd like to comment.
I am not in total agreement. This might be true in UK, but it's very difficult to decide the qualifications of directors in the board. If there is a bank, do we need all directors or independent directors from financial background? If it is a steel making company, do we need all people from something related to steel? Or do we have a mining company where majority of the people should come from mining? No. Actually, we have tried it. I was also responsible for selecting independent directors. Our belief was that if we are selecting say a lieutenant general to a board of some company which is in the business of mining or in the business of steel making, the belief was that a person has risen in his own cadre. He must have gained experience over 35 years and he has functioned in various capacities, capabilities, various environment circumstances. And he has climbed a very steep pyramid. He must be having something in him so that he has reached that spot. Can we use his experience and knowledge for the benefit of something which is entirely different from what he is doing, what he has done. But he is coming with a load of experience, with tremendous expertise in various fields. We tried to have in financial companies a number of chartered accountants. There was a problem in the board because there was so much discussion among those professionals that the functioning of the board became too tough. So we thought that we are too loaded with single type of professionals. We have IAS officers, we have got people from Air Force, we have got private people, we have got lawyers. We need people with tremendous experience and background from various fields so that board as a whole can correlate with things which have effect on the overall functioning of the board, and they can guide them from different angles, not necessarily from one particular.
I think that's a very important point. Diversity and inclusion is as much about diversity of thinking and background as it is necessarily gender or ethnicity or whatever. It is making sure that you have that input that is going to bring you to what we have always found to be better decision making when you have that diversity. Mr. Chaudhary, you had a point.
I would look at it slightly with a different perspective. Instead of focusing on individual traits of a board member, I'd like to look at the collective skills available in the board composition. Now, the way I would look at it is that we are today, board members also have to play the globalization penalty, as I call it. They can't be aloof anymore. The geosocial, the geoeconomic, the geopolitical, the geotechnological forces and their congruence and concurrence in different domains raises many challenges. So what are the attributes that I look for in a board? One, I think board members must start thinking like an activist and behaving like an activist in challenging the assumptions on which strategies are based. It's not with a view to criticize or create disharmony in the board, but it's a view to, if the purpose is to create new thinking and look at things before they go wrong, because things are changing fast. For that we need certain skills. Now I think increasingly it is important that three skills in whatever composition relatively are required in each board member. One is ethics. Second, ability to analyze the strategy and risk assessment. And then individual members need to have focus in at least 4 or 5 areas, like technology, human resources, finance, compliance, and legal. And if the business is of particular relevance, then a few more. Certainly, social media and cyber knowledge is very, very important to today's context. Then fundamentally, the board must look upon itself as co-creators of corporate strategy. Now, I can, and if they think that they don't have it in them, they should not hesitate to seek outside advice and participation. I can give my personal example. In the last 1 year, I have been called upon to spend a day each with 2 plus $70 billion boards in Europe. And just 11 of them and me, they wanted me to challenge their emerging market assumptions, strategy for the next 5 to 10 years. And this is something which boards are increasingly doing. I think you had made the point earlier that there is an overlap between operating issues and future issues. And the board papers tend to focus more than 90% on routine issues. Now, many companies have taken care of that by having an operating board and a supervisory board or a strategy board. I think operating board of executive directors should be authorized to take all decisions. And the supervisory board should look at the future. Thank you.
Did you want to comment?
Well, if we go by the topic of today's discussion, building board
Compliance audit to be done. That is mandatory every year. And I can tell you that this Companies Act contains one of the most, I would say, very serious provisions mentioned there, wherein for the first time, the directors and the chairman are liable to pay fine, in rupees. Maybe I think the first time the offence is 1 lakh, if I remember right, and it goes on and on. For the first time, this has been introduced. So the board functionaries become personally responsible for any of the failures on the part of the compliances. So this is a very serious challenge. So I totally agree with the other co-panelists who say that the board has to be a very balanced board. We cannot take specialists, but there have to be journalists who are more balanced, who can take care of all the requirements that the new Companies Act requires. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Chris, you want to take?
Unfortunately, I'm one of those who helped draft this Companies Act, so I have to maybe defend it in some ways. He's right, of course. There are many compliance issues. The worry and the concern always was that the previous act allowed too many loopholes. And there were so many fraudulent practices happening that our Serious Fraud Investigation Office in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs was completely inundated with hosts and literally tons of shortcuts that people were taking on non-compliance issues. So maybe it has gone, the pendulum has swung a little to the side of compliance. Most boards now have a compliance officer. I, in my own board, have a compliance officer who reports to the board each time and signs on a document which says whatever were the compliance items that had to come before the board, I have personally seen them and they conform to the regulations in fact. It comes before the board. So we do get it examined before the board actually sits, because if the board were to examine every single one of the compliance issues, they would be sitting there for a month and doing nothing else. So that part is well taken care of. I just wanted to clarify that when I was talking about the training or the qualification of independent directors, it was not about specialization. It's not about having steel people on steel boards or mining people on mining boards. This was a general qualification that if you were to be on any board, irrespective of which board you go to, it would help if you qualified yourself in different ways. So whether it is finance, whether it is the world economy, whether it is the sector in which you want to be, whatever it is, these courses are beautifully designed to enable you to move seamlessly into any board for which you are picked. Now coming to this point about trying to have a balance in the board. At the end of the day, what is this board? It is a conglomeration of people, much like a cricket team. If you're not playing as a team on the same side, led by a CEO whose leadership you respect, that team is going to lose. Therefore, the board, for all its internal dissensions, opinions, abstracts, concerns, worries, share all their stuff inside. But out there, when you're playing in the field, you're batting on the same side. You really have to get your strategy, your vision, your leadership, your acceptance of the credo of the board. And you said one very important thing, Ms. Brand. You said that the culture that the board propagates in the company, the top-down signals are the culture of that company. Mr. Masood pointed to the fact that we are on the board an ethical company. That message trickles down by what you say, by what you do, the strategy you impose, and the way you ask your employees to function. So that part
expert, but he should know what is right and what is wrong, and what he should do and what he shouldn't do. He should be aware of that. These are the basic qualities, perhaps.
I think there is no doubt, not only the board members, they apply to everyone. So we can't say that we need this only board members, for everyone. Ethics, moral values, hard work. The board is the leadership and intellectual capital which is there. Can it be converted into something in future? Given the fact that you are working morally, ethically, and
Point by my distinguished senior officer about the objective English philosopher himself described. What is the difference between subjectivity and objectivity? He says oftentimes. Thank you once again. Please join us for dinner.